Welcome back to Episode 4. In this episode, we're diving into the future bass genre. Future bass is emotional, melodic, and powerful, filled with lush chords, wide supersaws. The tempo for future bass usually sits between 140 and 145 BPM, but for this tutorial, we'll set it to 140 BPM for a perfect balance of energy and clarity. So let's jump right into Episode 4. I already had a chord idea. It's emotional, but also a little funky. This will set the mood for our future bass track. I picked 2 vocal shots from the KSHMR pack. These are perfect for a vocal lead. Let's listen to both first. Now, I'm splitting the lead into 2 parts. Some notes play with the first vocal, and the other notes with the second one. This makes the lead more dynamic and unique. Okay, so now that we've chosen our vocal shots and layered them together, it's time to process the sound to make it fit perfectly in the mix. First, add a parametric EQ and cut the lows around 150 to 200 Hz. Second, add a reverb. Low cut at 0, high cut at 10 kHz, damping at 16 kHz. Decay set to 2 seconds, and wet level at 40%. Third, use fruity fast distortion. Push it a bit harder to add more energy for the drop. Fourth, add a compressor. Threshold around -12 to -14. Ratio 3:1, attack 200 to 250 milliseconds, release 150 to 200 milliseconds. Type set to hard, with a gain boost of about 1 to 2 dB. Fifth, use Soundgoodizer, Mode A. This enhances the sound, makes it brighter and more powerful instantly. Next, add another parametric EQ to cut some unwanted frequencies. Then, use Fruity Love Filter to reduce harshness and smooth out the lead. Now let's hear how it sounds dry. And here's how it sounds after the full processing chain. Now top lead sound selection. Here, I've selected 2 sounds that feel both fat and emotional. We'll move on to the processing stage to make them sit better in the mix. First, add a parametric EQ. Second, add a reverb. Same as vocal lead. Third, use Soundgoodizer, Mode A. This makes the lead brighter and more present instantly. Now let's hear it dry. And here's how it sounds after the full processing chain. Now that our top lead is processed, let's move on to drop chord sound selection. In future bass, this is the most important part, because it's what creates the emotion. Make sure your chords have a wide, lush, supersaw-like sound to give that rich, emotional vibe. Alright, now that you've heard the sounds one by one, let's move on to processing the drop chords. First, add a parametric EQ. Low cut around 150 to 200 Hz and remove any extra unwanted frequencies. Second, use Soundgoodizer, Mode C, to enhance brightness and presence. Third, add a reverb. Low cut at 800 Hz, high cut at 16 kHz, damping at 16 kHz, decay 2 seconds, wet level 20% for a smooth space. Fourth, use Fruity Love Filter to reduce harshness and make the chords silky. Now let's hear it dry, without processing. And here's how it sounds after the full processing chain. Now that our drop chords are processed, let's move on to mid-bass sound selection. Here, we'll use a fat, gritty mid-bass to make the drop powerful and full of energy. Alright, now let's move on to mid-bass processing. First, add a parametric EQ. Low cut around 120 to 150 Hz and remove unwanted frequencies. Then, use fruity fast distortion to give the mid-bass some extra grit and energy. Now let's hear it dry, without processing. And here's how it sounds after the full processing chain. Now let's move on to sub-bass sound selection. Sub-bass is what gives your track weight and body, sitting under the mid-bass. Keep it clean and deep, so it supports the drop without clashing with other elements. Now quickly mix the sub-bass. First, use fruity distortion to make the sub-bass tight and powerful. Second, add a parametric EQ. Low cut around 20 to 30 Hz to remove rumble that can mess up the track, and high cut according to your sub-bass sound to keep it clean and focused. This is without the mixing effect. And this is with. And now, I'll quickly add a white noise using 3XO plugin to give the drop an airy, spacious feel. Alright, now that all elements are processed, vocal lead, top lead, drop chords, mid-bass, sub-bass, and white noise, let's put them together and do a full sound check. Great! Everything sounds tight and powerful. Nice job! Now let's move on to our drums. Now that we've checked each drum sound one by one, kick, snare, toms, bass shots, reverse elements, arp, ambience, hi-hat loops, and the final fill. Let's move on to the full drum sound check. Now let's go to the final result. Before we check the final result, if you enjoyed this tutorial, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any future tutorials. I really appreciate your support.